Howdy, Larkin and Amanda here.
Hello.
And as you may have heard, we now have our IndieGoGo campaign up and running to try to make the Jones Plantation into a full-length feature film, actual movie thing. And it occurs to me while I was writing parts of the screenplay, which are really fun to write, even though it's expressing like the most profound, diabolical, manipulative evil that control freaks do. It occurs to me that I don't really know of any movie, of all the cool pro-freedom movies out there, you know, V for Vendetta and The Matrix and Braveheart and blah, blah, blah. I don't know any of them that really do a good job of showing how tyrants actually function and actually plan their stuff. And what I love about the Jones Plantation, the movie version, is that it gives us tons of room to show both sides. You know, people are out there, you know, watching the politicians go out there like, I'm for hope and change, and I'm going to make things better, and we can work together for a better blah, blah, blah. They hear the sales pitch and all its ridiculousness, and they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So they, you know, a bunch of people actually believe the garbage that the politicians are saying. But it occurs to me, I've never seen a movie that will show both sides, show the puppet show, because there are scenes where the manipulators are out there talking to the slaves and doing their sales pitch and looking all concerned and sincere, and we're in this together and yada, yada, yada. And then there are the scenes behind the scenes which really delve into the mentality and just the profound evil underlying love of dominion. And it's really fun to write, but while writing that, it suddenly occurred to me that I don't know any other movie that will actually show how tyrants function as well as this thing will.
Also, I think that the love of dominion thing isn't really put in a way in a lot of movies that people can... Like, a lot of things about just The Matrix, for example, are... That stuff goes right over a lot of a certain crowd's heads because it's so intentionally removed by several layers of fiction and weirdness from what a lot of the real world is for people, that it's supposed to be more of a representation it's supposed to be more metaphorical than anything. But this is something interesting because Jones Plantation is so cool because it is in a time and place that isn't right now, so people can remove it from themselves on that one level, except it takes place in a time and place where it is a real part of history. Like, it's a fictional, the story itself isn't, you know, based on a true story, and yet it is in a sense that it's based off of real history, but it's not right now. And then you have the fact that what's done in the movie is so much closer to home for so many people in terms of how human manipulation comes into play in the world. And so it's not as much, it's not as far removed from reality as like The Matrix is, so that it's not going to just fly over this many people's heads, you know, as The Matrix would have. It's going to fly over some heads maybe, but it's going to be a lot more obvious now that the internet has saturated the world and a lot of people have come together and become this big global family where a lot of people understand, you know, our governments are pitting us against each other and politicians are trying to keep us divided over stupid crap. And the Jones Plantation is just so much more showing how that mentality is all throughout versions of authority throughout history, and all it's really done is evolve. But by putting it back in the past a few years, you help people to make it not too close so they're not triggered. But you also help them to look at how the mentality of certain people hasn't really changed, and then they can very quickly start to see who in the real world nowadays holds the mentality of these people who love dominion and love control over others, you know, in the Jones Plantation.
And all the way show how they do it, like, in detail, in I mean, not real example as in it happens, but totally realistic. This is, like, it's not, you know, it's not some vague, weird, supernatural machines are taking over and you have to, like, think to figure out, oh, this corresponds to that. It's, like, really obvious and in your face. And it you know, to me, it's a lot like the thing of if a magician does some trick and you're like, whoa, how did you do that? And then he goes, here, look, I'll let you see behind the scenes. You do that and you go, oh, that's so cool. It's cool you faked me out, but now that I know how you do it, you're not like, it's impressive that somebody thought that up, but now I know the trick. And the thing is, when it comes to the Jones Plantation, I think everybody who's going to watch it, they will see this, the schizo narcissist sociopath who puts on the show for the audience that he's manipulating and controlling, and then you see behind the scenes where he's talking to other people and he's the mask is off. And I think the people who watch it, are going to watch it and go, wow, that was powerful, and then go out in the world and see a political campaign ad and go, holy crap. Like, they're not going to be able to miss the parallels. Like, a bunch of people can watch The Matrix or Hunger Games or whatever and miss the parallels. Okay, there's sort of some general things, but to see the specifics of how they actually do the manipulations down to just the most evil little psychological tricks that they do, which is, again, it's fun to write, even though it's creepy. Makes me want to punch myself in the face because it's so creepy to write persuasive propaganda that's designed to make other people give up their freedom. But to have people watch a movie in which they can specifically see, here's how it is being done to you, but we're setting it in this fictional setting so that you don't have to be too, triggered and freaked out. But to be able to show that, and it would just occur to me while I was working on it, I don't know any other movie that's ever done this, that's ever actually shown what they really do. Because you always get, you get the bad guys, like the bad guys in V for Vendetta, power happy bastard, pretty obviously power happy bastard. It's not like the people are going, oh, he really cares about us. Okay, obvious power happy bastard. And Braveheart, okay, obviously tyrannical king and all his underlings. And so, not only to show, there are movies where, oh, this guy is sneaky. Like, he seemed like a nice guy, but then you find out he's sneaky. And that's cool, but it's usually done in a fairly general way, and it doesn't show, this is exactly how they pit us against each other, and exactly how they look like this.
And so often it's directed at, the evil, or the focus in the movie is, in Hollywood anyway, it's directed at, like, a person or a couple of people, and it's not really about an entire belief system or mentality that the character is finding out, permeates everything. It's not really focused on that. It's like, we got to focus on this one person. Somehow this one person is messing us all up and controlling us all.
He's the bad guy. He's the problem.
And it's so much more than that, because you need a manipulator and multiple manipulators that understand a game or a way of thinking, and then you need the manipulated, and you need to understand how they're manipulated so that they go along with their own subjugation and even support it. And that's not really, on the smallest scale. The only thing I can think of that might have ever addressed that is if there are movies out there that are more like about a woman who's dealt with like battered spouse syndrome, and she's got Stockholm syndrome, and that's like one scale, but that's closer to the relationship between the subjects of a ruling class and a ruling class. That's closer of an analogy than, and more obvious than a lot of things are in fictional, movies about governments. It's like, that's actually very accurate. It's more of a whole entire government is like the abuser, and its subjects are the abused, but they also are playing into that relationship. So.
Yeah. What was the really old movie that we saw? It's the origin of the term gaslighting.
Gaslight.
Oh, the movie's called Gaslight.
The movie is called Gaslight.
Okay,
yeah, and
that's
it
right.
stars, I think it was made in I could be wrong, but I think it was made in the 40s or 50s, and it stars Ingrid Bergman as the main female, and it's a fully black and white movie. But the term gaslighting came from Gaslight,
it came from that
movie.
And we won't bother to get into that. You can go look it up and watch it. But that did a good job of actually showing the manipulations and the games going on behind the scene. Another thing I totally wanted to mention, we don't have to babble on about this too much, but the animated version of the Jones Plantation, which is like 12 minutes long or something, the comments under it, some people were like, a number of people misinterpret it one way or another. Most people get that, oh, holy smokes, this is the system we have now.
Yeah.
And some people go, oh, this is a condemnation of capitalism and advocacy of socialism. I was like, no, you totally missed the point. But when we have, time for a full movie, it's going to be really dang obvious. Not only are we going to show the manipulations and the creepy things politicians do, we're going to show the creepy things that both sets of politicians do, so that we do the sales pitch and the manipulations that the political left does and that the political right does. And so nobody's going to go into, see, that's why we need Democrats in charge, or that's why we need Republicans in charge. They're all... I think what's going to happen is almost every sort of politically involved viewer is going to go, yeah, that's what Republicans do if it's a Democrat. Right. And then they're going to go, oh, crap, that's what my guys do, too. Because it shifts back and forth, and it covers all of the tricks that all of both sides play, so that the average viewer can feel all good and happy and content when they go, yeah, this is showing how evil the other side is. And then they notice, oops, the thing that I fell for is just a slightly different version of the same lie.
One of the things that I think is relevant about the Jones Plantation right now is it obviously goes into the race history thing with America, which the ruling class is trying to make into a thing right now, but a lot of people aren't falling for it. They know it's BS. So people of all races in this country are realizing you're trying to put us against each other when in the real world we go out and in everyday life we're getting along just fine. The Jones Plantation is specifically going into that. It's a little more relevant, and a lot of people ask why that, or why not the Iron Web, for example. And the Iron Web is so much more in your face about the concepts of basically self-ownership and what is called voluntarism, but what other people call anarchy. And not a lot of people like the word anarchy, or they think it's got a word that's got a stigma behind it. The Iron Web is very in your face with that. It's very bold with that. The Jones Plantation is interesting because the Jones Plantation is way more palatable to the general public, and it's also relevant in a way that a bunch of the general public is feeling right now, because so many people out there know that there is some sort of weird race baiting and race war crap trying to be pushed right now, and they don't like that. And so this kind of relates to that. And nothing about the Jones Plantation is preachy in the sense of self-ownership and the non-aggression principle and anarchy. None of these words are used in that movie. None of it's going to be presented that way. It's demonstrating. It's, the whole, show, don't tell. It's showing the mindsets in a way that relates specifically to how the political system works today, and then linking it back through time and looking at the history of this country and how that way, basically, without being preachy at people, it's a Trojan horse, that term meaning just to sneak something in a little bit under the radar, that gets into their mind and is so weirdly relevant without being obvious on the forefront of it, that they're going to be hit with it in layers after they watch the movie, which is why we realized, oh my God, if there's a perfect movie right now that could be done and somebody wants to help us do it, it's the Jones Plantation.
And when Andrew came up with the idea, the director of this, it was his idea to say, what if you made this into an actual movie?
Right.
And I thought about it for a few minutes. I was like, holy smokes, of any of the videos I've ever done, this is the best thing to get to the general public, because it doesn't just start by running them over with a tank and saying everything you think about government authority is totally bogus. That's too traumatic for the general public. And I totally want to see the Iron Web be a movie, but that's going to traumatize the hell out of people. Whereas this will also traumatize the hell out of people, but it won't turn them off. They'll literally just be watching a story and along the way get creeped out rather than scared away by the story.
You were actually he was kind of like annoyed at himself that he didn't have the idea first.
Why didn't
it's like such a perfect delivery mechanism for this kind of message to the public right now. So when Andrew came to you with it, you were like sort of just duh, we should be doing this. This should be a thing. If you want to make this happen, this should be a movie.
And it's why I've been working on the screenplay time before we have any funding, because I couldn't stop myself, because there's so many parts you could really flesh out this and you could really make that in depth. And
so normally what you do is you get funding first. In the process of making a movie, first of all, a screenplay is writing a screenplay is an intensive thing, and a lot of the way it works is people agree that they want to fund a movie, and they come together and we want to have this movie made. Whoever's doing the screenplay, we fund him to the tune of, you know, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 first, and, you know, throw $40,000 at him, and he has this amount of time to get the screenplay done. And then, you know, then we all discuss the movie budget and pitch him for the whole movie. And he's been writing the screenplay since the idea came up. Like, there's no money towards it yet, and before the IndieGoGo campaign was up. Now the IndieGoGo campaign is up, so there's money coming in, but that's a fundraising campaign to fund the whole movie, and it's, you know, we don't see any of that, so he's basically working for free on the screenplay for this, and he can't stop writing. Like, it's so good, and it's
and I can show this, I can
every scene and every line and everything in the movie is kind of going to matter. That's exactly the kind of movie that it's going to be. There's not going to be filler, there's not going to be substanceless crap, it's not for beauty purposes, it's going to be aesthetically done very well because we have the connections to that to be able to make it done very nicely, but it's going to be a very meaningful, substantive, quality made movie.
And it's
everything will matter.
Like, the challenge will be shortening it down to what it needs to be, not, we got, you know, so many people like, well, we have to fill space to make it a whole hour and a half or whatever. It's not going to be a problem here. And there's so much substance to be had in so many different ways and scenes and stuff that it's, you know, it's like, how do you pack it all into that so it's going to be really concentrated and powerful in a way that it isn't like Democrat. It's like a movie about, here's a slave plantation and here's these nasty overlords, you know, being mean and trying to oppress people. So like the political left, what is there to complain about it? They'll go like, that was okay, that was powerful. And then conservatives are like, that was a horrible day, and that was, you know, in human history and blah blah blah, and wow, that was powerful. Like, it's not like if you go out and say your political party sucks and here's why, half the people or all the people will like get offended and get defensive.
Right.
The beauty of this, and again, it wasn't my idea, I wish it was my idea, is that it just occurs to me that this whole story, there's no point at which anybody has any right to get defensive about it unless you're like literally a slave owner.
Hence the Trojan horse term. It's not punching people in the face.
Right.
It's a punch in the face of their subconscious that still believes in statism, yes, but it's not this full frontal thing. It's basically, you know, when you really understand human psychology and you get the psychology of statism and how it works, then the ruling class or statism's game in the whole belief system, you see how you can use their own, you know, what they understand about human psychology and their own mental manipulations against them. And you can use people's psychology in a way that will free them. So it's like the fact that people will sort of have their guard down for this kind of movie makes it so that their subconscious is going to just be like run over with the effect of what the movie really is saying and communicating to them. And I've had movies, very few, but I've had a few movies do that to me. And that's when I had real respect for the writers and the directors, because it wasn't just this thing that just was very obvious laid out right in front of me in this, you know, flat thing that I was like, okay, that's what that was. It hit me in layers later on, and then it dawned on me what the whole thing really was about. And that's the kind of thing that the Jones Plantation is going to do.
They will find the conclusions. And that's the power in it, is if you show something such that they go, like, this is how our system works, including the people I've been voting for and falling for. If they figure that out, and you never tell them that, you know, it's not like in the middle of the movie you go, by the way, this is the Democrats and Republicans. Like, they, you know, this is the same thing they do. But if they figure out, holy smokes, I recognize the patterns, maybe that really is what they are, there's nobody to get defensive at. You didn't insult their favorite politician. Yep. You made them think about the fact that maybe my favorite politician is a conniving piece of crap. And if they, you know, it's the old psychology thing. If they find the conclusion for themselves, then they're comfortable. I mean, they can be uncomfortable, like, oh, it creeps me out, but it's theirs. They found it, they discovered it. And so, you know, so much of teaching is like helping somebody find the conclusion for themselves instead of just hitting them in the face with it. And I think this is like the best vehicle I can think of, which is why I'm so glad Andrew had the idea, the best vehicle I can think of to all the way show, not just kind of show, oh, there's some manipulations, but all the way show the mentality and the approach and the attitude of the control freaks of the world, and show exactly how they do it, you know, behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. So you see the show, and then you see, here's what's going on behind, and you go, oh, okay, ooh, now I get, I've only ever seen this part of the show. Now I get to see what came before that and why they did it that way. And so, anyway, that's probably enough babbling. But
we're good.
We're working away on this project, and we have the IndieGoGo campaign. The link is going to be below. I think this will be really dang impactful. And like I've said before, in spite of all the lunacy going on in the world, I think right now more people are open to the ideas of actual liberty, and more people are, you know, acknowledging how loony the whole system is. They just need to see the ultimate conclusion of that. It isn't just, oh, this bunch of crooks is just horribly corrupt. They need to see, oh, that's why it's corrupt, and that's why I don't trust them. And like, build the whole picture for them. Because like I've said before, you know, a lot of people are what I call default anarchists. They're anarchists and don't know it yet because they just don't know what the word means. They know somebody throwing Molotov cocktails.
All they know is, I don't like any of that.
Yeah.
And those people are a lot of this country. That's why I've never been more excited to be alive, because I'm not, you know, with all this weird crap going on, a lot of people could assume that what they're seeing is a lot of willful or blind compliance by the populace, but that's actually not the case. A lot of people are actually more or less just doing the I'm just trying not to get attacked thing, but they don't have allegiance to any one person or ruling class or anything. They have just this, I don't really know how that operates, I don't like it, I don't trust it, and this has never been a more ripe, fertile soil in this country, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, over this entire continent right now. So
they have the picture of the, you know, there's corruption and crap going on, I don't really like it. We need to fill in the rest of the picture of the mentality that it comes from and how the game works.
And how that leads to this crap.
Once the person knows how the magician's trick works, it doesn't work anymore. And that's what the Jones Plantation is supposed to do, is show people how mental domination works so that it doesn't stinking work anymore. So please support it, and if nothing else, just spread this video around all over the place to other people who might want to support it.
Thank you for donations and for supporting us and doing all that you guys do as a family, as a community out there to help us out. It's literally keeping everything going and making it so that this stuff can move along. And I believe now more than ever that the community is big enough globally to actually make waves and do stuff, and then have the real message of real liberty and truth actually heard.
Yeah, so to learn more or to support it, or just to share it all over the place, go below and find the link to the IndieGoGo campaign.
Thanks, guys.